Hi, everybody. Today's Friday, May 1st, 2026, and our dear friends Larry Johnson and Corin Wilkerson are back with us. Welcome back.
Uh,
Oh,
Glad to be here. I think.
and
We'll
happy
we'll
May
find out.
Day.
I'll tell
It
you.
is, it is me. It is me.
Yeah, happy May Day to both of you. And today is special. Here in Brazil is Labor Day. It seems that in the United States it's different. It's something.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 50. Good Lord, now 60 years ago, when I was like 11, we would do a maypole to dance around the maypole. There was an old British tradition.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore at schools.
Yeah. We used to do that at Gaffney Central Elementary School where I went. Yeah.
Yeah.
We put colored paper around the pole and carry it out like a maypole, run around with it.
Yeah. Let me start here with the latest news, what was said on Fox News, and later on we've learned from the White House officials. And what was reported that is the CENTCOM commander, Admiral Brad Cooper, has briefed Donald Trump in the Situation Room about the potential final blow to Iran. And the other point that is White House is the White House official stated that the administration is conducting negotiations with Congress regarding the possibility of obtaining permissions for a full war with Iran. I don't know what has happened so far in the 40 days of war. Wasn't that full war? And what does that mean? Where are we right now? Let me start with Larry, with you. What is your understanding of that?
Well, today is the 60th day since the start of the conflict. So they're supposed to, under the War Powers Act, Congress, Trump's going to have to do something. Now, I saw that the White House put out a statement yesterday that Trump basically is considering, the war's over. We fought, the 60 days. We don't have to do anything else. And then they're going to wait a day or two, and they'll start the war again. It's like resetting a clock. So the what I've heard from my sources is that Cooper, the admiral, and his underlings, they're recommending let's not go any further. We've done everything that we can do. If we do anything additionally, it's going to be too risky. We're going to use up too many weapons that are already scarce, and we're not going to accomplish anything. Remains to be seen if Kane endorsed their position, but they're briefing the possibility of continued air operations like the first 5 weeks, possible special operations mission to go grab some nuclear material. And what's worrisome about that is there has been a significant increase in the special operations forces moving into the region, both not only SEAL Team 6 but other SEAL units. So they're not traditionally considered part of the SOF mission. And then you got Delta there. So it's like loading a gun. Well, if you load it, you're probably going to shoot it. So there's that possibility that they might engage with some form of a ground operation, but they don't have a ground forces commander. And that, as Colonel Wilkerson knows, last thing you want is an Air Force general or a Navy admiral running ground operations.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. So Trump, unfortunately, looks like he's going to go back to war. He's not going to take the exit ramp. And so, I don't know if it'll happen this week or first of next week, but I think it'll be in the next 3 or 4 days. Sure hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. Carl, your take.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Larry. I hope we're both wrong. Just for the benefit of your listeners who might think this is a little bit arcane, let me try to simplify it for them with regard to the War Powers Resolution. First of all, the War Powers Resolution is unconstitutional. Anybody in the business of interpreting the Constitution originalist or modernist will come to that conclusion if they're worth a damn. It was an attempt by the Congress to get the best of both worlds. That is to say, to have something to say about the constitutional propriety, rightness, if you will, rectitude of a conflict, but at the same time retain their wonderful capacity to not support it unless it was successful. In other words, the Congress wanted to look at it for a while, 60 days maybe, and say, oh, it's a failure. Now let's criticize the president from both sides of the aisle. Or now it's a success. Let's say we authorized it and let's go ahead. So the War Powers Resolution is a dilution of the Constitution. Nixon didn't understand that. His lawyers didn't understand that. So he vetoed it. I mean, it was crazy. It was no abridgment on presidential power. It is indeed, as H.W. Bush said one time, it's an enhancement of presidential power. Yeah. So, and these reporting periods are poppycock because the president can lie through his teeth, or as Larry just said, you know, Trump was also advocating yesterday that ceasefire, stop the war. So 60 days hadn't passed. I mean, these are the kind of concoctions, and I've been there when presidents and their teams like Colin Powell and Dick Cheney and others came up with these excuses with regard to this sort of thing. All that said, we are at a position now where with Hegseth's testimony, with testimony of others that was indirect, like Scott Bessent, and with the president's statements that the Congress ought to stand up and take some action. If for no other reason, the chairman, I think it was, of the House Armed Services Committee, of the subcommittee that looks directly at defense appropriations, he was apoplectic about the money we're spending. And he actually said we're spending more right now on security, he said the Defense Department, but you look at the security budget, it's twice that, than we did at any given day in World War II. And this is absurd, he said. So this is all going to come to a head, I think, around the time of the midterms. And it's going to come to a nasty head because we really are sucking hind, whatever, with regard to our debt. And this is just deepening it and deepening it and deepening it. And at the same time, you probably saw that the meeting they're going to have in Colombia, 60 countries, I think, coming, didn't even invite us. So this is the future for the United States of America, whether it's a climate crisis like this is involved with, or whether it's any other issue. They do not want us there, and they will not want us there in the future. Our policy consists of two elements: military power and sanctions. Sanctions and military power. We have no other policy. And I'm not so sure it would be any different were Biden and Blinken and Sullivan back in there. So we have become a pariah state, just like our little vacillating state in the Eastern Mediterranean, Israel, who is now, you probably know, 600 miles from any Israeli water, arresting people on boats in international waters because they're part of the flotilla coming to Gaza. You just can't be a bigger violator of what we always said was international law and what it means. So we're at a point right now where everything that I've said before about this geopolitical situation that is sweeping over the world and returning power to the East is accelerating to the extent that, we are going down much faster than I ever thought we would.
Larry, when it comes to the objectives of the attack, as you've mentioned, it could be imminent. It could be any time, any moment this week or in the coming days. What are the main objective if they go that way? You're talking about the ground invasion. It doesn't seem that would be likely, or that would be somehow in the mind of the people who are trying to restart the war. And the other point is what it seems to me that the blockade is failing, and the Trump administration, despite having this sort of rhetoric that is so successful, they're getting to the point to understand that the blockade is not working. That's why they need a new round of war. Your understanding of that?
You obviously haven't read my piece at sonar21.com. That's sonar21.com. Okay, look, this blockade is it's a charade. It's a complete made for TV, made to fool the United States citizens. It's not real. The U.S. Navy right now has deployed about you got 3 carrier strike groups, and each of those carrier strike groups carry they have between 3 and 4 ships, destroyers, cruisers. So let's go with 4 apiece. That's 12. Then you've got the 2 MEUs, which each MEU in this amphibious, they call it an ARG. I forget what the full acronym is, but they got 3
amphibious readiness group.
Amphibious
ARG.
readiness.
Yeah.
Okay. Amphibious readiness group. So they got 3 ships per each of those, and again, you take out the aircraft carriers and the carrier strike groups, because they're not going to pull up alongside some ship and board it. So basically, you got a total of about 11 ships that could be used to board a tanker or a cargo vessel. Well, the other thing is we're keeping the U.S. Navy 200 miles offshore of Iran. Okay, we're not getting inside that 200-mile barrier, because if they get close, they get shot. Well, so what does Iran do? Because we said we blockaded their ports. We haven't blockaded their ports. Nonsense. So the Iranian vessel comes out of port, whether it's Bandar Abbas or Karg Island. So it stays within the 12-mile limit of territorial waters. Okay, 12 miles out, plenty of depth, and so they're about 180 miles away from the nearest U.S. ship. Let's say the U.S. ship is then, the U.S. Navy is going to go, oh, we're going to go get this tanker. They wait till it gets out of Iranian waters, maybe into Pakistani waters, and in theory, they go and they board it. Okay, once they board it, they either have to have a prize crew and a crew that takes control of the ship and sells it, or in any event, they have the ship that was used to basically stop the Iranian vessel. It stays with it until they get to wherever the port, wherever they're going with it. Well, if you've only got like 11 ships that are capable of doing that, that means you can stop 11 vessels. And since April 15th, there have been between 100 and 200 Iranian vessels coming out of the Gulf. The point is, we're only stopping maybe 10% on a good day, 3%. So like I said, it's complete utter bullshit what's being pushed. And there's Hank says, oh, we're tough and we got us the strongest ever and we're stopping, and then it's going to affect their economy. Give me a break. The number I heard yesterday was the oil that Iran had out on the open seas that had been sold, 150 million barrels of oil, selling at about $140 per barrel. Do the math. It's about $21 billion. Yeah, Scott Besson, man, he's got his foot on the throat of the Iranian economy. That $21 billion. And I mean, it's just, the United States is engaged in one of the greatest acts of mass delusion that I've ever seen.
On top of that, Nima, I'm coming back from the coffee shop this morning about 7 a.m. and I'm tuned into NPR, and the woman says there are still 2,000 plus ships stuck off the Strait of Hormuz with about 15,000 mariners on them, and they're starving. They don't have clean water to drink, and they don't have any place to go. So what are we doing? Yeah. But absolutely screwing up the world.
Yeah. Colonel, there was a report on CBS. Here is what it says, that a major fire aboard USS Higgins disabled the ship, causing total power and propulsion loss. Incident happened in the Indo-Pacific region, but the exact location is undisclosed. No crew casualties so far. And this is part of that campaign against, that they're, because they're controlling Indo-Pacific. If you remember, one of these tankers, Iranian tankers, was seized in the Indo-Pacific. And I don't know how costly is this operation of the whole concept of blockade so far. It's unbelievable what's going on with that.
Well, the figure I got yesterday from the Pentagon was $28.7 billion so far. The question I asked simply was, how much does this war cost us to this point? I suspect that's about half of what the real cost is, but nonetheless, that's significant cost. So your point is made. And to what purpose? That's the big question. To what purpose? That's what the Congress should be asking. To what purpose are we spending all of this money? And why are we doing the war in the first place? Because there's not been a really good explanation yet. From Hegseth, from Bessent, from Trump himself, from J.D. Vance, there's not been a good explanation. We don't like Iran. Okay, that's not really a good strategic rationale.
It's something beyond that. Larry, since Colonel just mentioned the budget, that the spending so far with this war, Pentagon said 2 days ago that it is $25 billion. But today we've learned from U.S. officials that that communicated with CBS News. They said it's $50 billion. Their estimation is 50. Yeah. It's twice what Pentagon had.
Yeah. That's probably closer.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the the rescue effort for the downed backseater on that F-15, this a special weapons officer or systems weapons officer, whatever they call it. We lost $500 million of planes on just that one day. 2 of the radars that Iran took out in the early days of this war were over $1 billion apiece right there. Reportedly, more than 49 aircraft have been shot or lost during this engagement. So, that probably those aircraft total probably about $2-3 billion, right? So yeah, the numbers keep piling up, but what the hell do we care? It's a credit card, and we don't have to pay the interest on it, or so we tell ourselves. This is like giving your kid goes to college, they get a credit card, and they never have to pay the bill. So you look at the acceleration of the debt. When Donald Trump took office, the debt was at $37 trillion. By the end of December, it had gone up $1 trillion. And then in the next 77 days into 2026, it went up an additional trillion. So it's now $39 trillion. And if that trend line continues, I think by the end of May, end of June at the latest, we'll be up another $1 trillion. And so we'll be at 40. And so this is economically unsustainable. And so this is it's the economic side of this that's going to bring an end to U.S. military operations. That the full weight of that has not hit yet. It's starting to hit though around the world, and it's creeping here into the United States. Just as Trump administration opened up the strategic oil reserve and was pumping oil out to try to keep the oil prices down, gasoline prices down. That's now failed. So just in the last 3 days, the price of gas here, at least in Florida, it's gone up 40 cents. So it's going up about 10 to 20 cents a day.
Yeah, I run my Toyota Camry down to about half a tank before I fill it up. So several months ago, I was filling it up, fairly expensive filling station too for this area, for about $21, $22. I filled it up the other day with about the same amount of fuel. It was $52. That is going to eat into people's spending.
Yeah.
Colonel, Pete Hegseth was asked about the objectives of this second round of war, which was February 28th this year. And here is what he said.
Never have it. So they haven't broken yet. Okay, we haven't gotten there yet for all of the...
Well, their nuclear facilities have been obliterated. underground. They're buried, and
Whoa,
we're
whoa, whoa,
watching
whoa,
them
whoa, whoa, whoa,
24/7.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
So we know
whoa,
where
whoa, whoa,
any
whoa, whoa.
nuclear material
Reclaiming
might
my
be.
time for
We're
just a
watching
quick
it.
second here. We had to start this war, you just said, 60 days ago, because the nuclear weapon was an imminent threat. Now you're saying that it was completely obliterated?
They had not given up their nuclear ambitions, and they had a conventional shield of thousands of
So
missiles.
Operation
They're
Midnight
at the
Hammer
weakest
accomplished
moment.
nothing of substance. It
You're
left us
missing-
at
you're
exactly
missing
the
the
same
point.
place we were before. So
Their,
much so
their
that we had to
facilities
start
were
a
bombed
war.
and obliterated. Their ambitions continued, and they're building a conventional shield.
All right,
of
let me
missiles.
try again.
It's the North Korea strategy. You know this very well. The North
I
Korea
know.
strategy was use conventional missiles to prevent anybody from.
Yeah, basically what he's arguing, Colonel, is that they have destroyed, they have obliterated the Iranian nuclear program or that enriched uranium, but the ambitions were there, the desire was there. We were there to destroy the desire. How is that
Oh,
if
God.
that didn't help him?
That's a casus belli, the desire. I would have loved to have been there at that moment when he said the example of North Korea, because I would have just come back with North Korea's got the bomb. I mean, what an example to use. North Korea's got the bomb. And North Korea told us they had the bomb when we went forward trying to entice them with an economic package to not get the bomb. It wasn't a war. It wasn't a war. We didn't even threaten a war. We essentially said, here's what you can have. This is a hugely generous package. And it was. It was amazing it got through Dick Cheney. I couldn't believe it got through Dick Cheney because we were going to give the North Koreans a whole new economy, a whole new relationship with the United States. Their response was, we got the bomb, dude.
Yeah.
Basically, this is the main sort of discussion right now in Iran, because many people believe that Iran needs some sort of deterrent, because they don't believe that the United States or Israel would respect any sort of agreement. That's the majority of Iranians right now talking about what is the future of the nuclear program of Iran if they decide to attack us again and again, if nobody cares about these attacks.
Well, given the track record of both countries, Israel and the United States, how could you come to any other conclusion, really?
Yeah.
Larry, you remember when this war started, Europeans were totally, at least, Merz in Germany was saying, they're doing our dirty job. Let's do regime change in Iran. Right now, he's totally against, somehow he has some sort of huge differences with Donald Trump because he put something out and Donald Trump responding to him. But after all, looking at the situation with the way that the United States pushed the whole Iranian sort of public opinion toward what would be the future for them, how do you understand that?
Well, the United States we failed to learn any lessons from history, for starters. The thing I've become sort of obsessed with this week has been a reaction to Trump's claim that the Iranian leadership is in disarray, that there's nobody in charge. And this is not something that Trump came up with on his own. This is, I believe, Israeli intelligence that's been transmitted via liaison channels, and the majority in the Trump cabinet have bought onto this. They say, "Oh yeah, that's true," because then when I started looking at it in depth, Pezeshkian, Arachi, Galibaf, the Ayatollah himself, Mujtaba Khamenei, and then the head of the IRGC. Turns out all five were IRGC in the Iraq War. Now, Pezeshkian was actually, he was regular army, but he was a medic, and they assigned him to work exclusively with the IRGC. So he was treating and saving the lives of IRGC folks. My point in all of this is that all of these guys who are in leadership positions, they come out of the same background. They didn't serve in necessarily the same exact unit, but they all fought. And four of them are combat veterans, and we ought to put that into the context of remembering our greatest generation that were combat veterans, how they interacted with each other. It didn't. It wasn't one of great division. And so this tells me that right now Iran actually has probably the strongest, most unified set of leaders that it's had in its history. And we better damn well take that into account, because the notion that they're weak, the notion that they're confused or frightened. I mean, these guys have been to war. Donald Bone Spurs Trump has not. Okay, he found ways to avoid service. Hegseth is the only one in the group that has actually had some military experience, and obviously he didn't learn much from it. So the United States is grossly underestimated the nature of the Iranian leadership, and then the effect that the U.S. attack has had on the Iranian people. Instead, I think John Kiriakou commented the other day, he was watching one of the videos, and it was Iranians in the street waving flags in favor. It was a protest in support of the government, or not a we got to find another word for it. It wasn't a protest. It was a rally. And the camera focused on this one, let's call her a lady. If she would have been a poster girl for a lesbian gathering, she was very butch, exhibited some masculine features. She's the kind of person that probably 3 months ago would have been an opponent of the Iranian regime. And she's out in support, rallying for the Iranian regime. That's the kind of effect we've had on the Iranian people. And Trump and his advisors, they don't understand that.
It reminds me of Neiman when I actually saw these photographs. When Bill Clinton ordered the bombing of Serbia, 78 days ultimately, we went after the main bridge there in Belgrade and just relentlessly striking it with bombs. And the second day, they showed a video of Serbs standing on the bridge, extending the middle finger as the jets rolled in.
Carol, what amazes me basically when it comes to IRGC, the understanding mostly in the West is that IRGC is some sort of institution, some sort of class in Iran, within the Iranian society, that they're different from other part of the society, which exactly the opposite. They're basically, they have each and every class in the society. Iran has a representative in IRGC. They're basically, it seems like you say, American Navy is different from American people. American Air Force is different from American. It's just unbelievable. I don't know how is that even possible to think this way.
Well, that's the way we do wars, generally speaking, Nima. Even if we win them, we type classify everybody the same. The Abwehr, the Wehrmacht, the SS, they were all the same. The dirty Hun. It's a necessity to a certain extent, especially when you're involved in what might be an existential war. But it's never really true, as you just indicated. Another thing I would point out, though, and this is the other side of the coin, if you will. I read the report about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I guess now, maybe a little longer. A report well done, participated in by some Iranians in Iran at the University of Iran. And the report showed how much money oil sales generated for Iran on a fiscal year basis in US dollars. And then it showed how much the IRGC took out of that. Fabulous amount of money. They were taking about 1/4 of the Iranian budget, most of it generated from oil sales, oil and gas. And the implication was strong when you just did simple things like analyze the number of people in the IRGC leadership and the amount of money being essentially taken away from the Iranian government, which could have been used for social programs, for food, any number of things that would have benefited the Iranian people, was going to the IRGC. And then when you read further into the analysis, it wasn't going to the rank and file of the IRGC. It was going to the leadership. So that is a problem within the chemistry, if you will, I suspect, of Iran. But back to our original point, when you bomb people, You do away with considerations like that. Franklin Roosevelt put Lucky Luciano in charge of the wharfs in New York so that he didn't have a problem with the wharf workers and the dock workers and everything. Later gave him Cuba. You got to use what you got to use is my point. But bombs fuse everybody. Doesn't matter whether there's a problem between this element or that element. When you start bombing someone, you are doing them a favor, actually, in terms of their solidity, their cohesiveness in opposing you. It's utterly stupid what we've done. If I could give you a plan for waging war against Iran that would be 100% different than what we're doing right now, and might have a remote possibility of actually bringing them to the negotiating table. But we aren't even anywhere near that. We're not anywhere, because we don't have anybody, Nima, in charge who has a brain.
Yeah. Larry, what do you make of the phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin right after the meeting he had with the Iranian foreign minister? It seems that it was Vladimir Putin who called Donald Trump, because Russian sources are saying that and
Yeah.
he initiated the call with Donald Trump, Putin, and your understanding of that.
Yeah, it was a direct result of meeting with Arachi on Monday, and the message that was conveyed to Donald Trump is basically keep your damn hands off of Iran. If you put ground forces in, you're going to have a problem with us. That was the message, based on Yuri Ushakov gave a briefing to the press yesterday. So it was described as a friendly call, but it was a call putting Trump and company on that Russia has the full backing. They are behind Iran 100% in this. So it's one other thing for Trump to think about. Frankly, I don't think Trump even takes it seriously, or that it's going to affect his judgment. I think he's off in a completely different dimension. So, but he took the phone call. Putin delivered the message, and this is only the second time that actually Putin has initiated a phone call. So that shows, from the Russian standpoint, it was a priority, and we'll see. Right now, the entire military posture in the region, it's locked and loaded. It's just a matter of Trump saying, "Okay, go or don't go," and we'll find out. One thing that would tell us that he's going to back away is if he started withdrawing troops, but that's not what's happening. They're flowing more troops, more resources into the region. So that just tells me this is not an intimidation tactic. This is they're actually going to launch, even though the military advisors have counseled against it. Trump once again is going to ignore what the military has told him, and he's going to make matters worse.
Nima, if they abandoned every other war plan in the Pentagon that's on the shelf for potential execution, there are different shelves for them. That is to say, the ones that are on the shelf for execution are already virtually tip-fitted and tip-fiddled and ready to go. If they executed every single one of those with the military power behind it, combined, and did it against Iran, they couldn't beat Iran.
Right.
So this is a joke. This is a complete joke. It's going to get a lot of people, if it materializes, it's going to get a lot of people killed on both sides. Going to get a lot of GIs, a lot of Marines, a lot of special operators killed, going to destroy billions of dollars worth of equipment. At the end of the day, the Strait of Hormuz is still going to be more or less controlled by Iran. And if Iran wants to go to its second tier of targets, then we're in recession in June and depression by September. The globe, including America.
Yeah.
This is insanity. Insanity is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Larry, how much of what's going on and the chance of having, or the risk of having some sort of escalation is related to the situation of Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel? because the latest poll is showing that the opposite, his rivals are getting the momentum in Israel. So is Donald Trump going to save him by new attacks, by new round of attack? And the other point is the situation in the southern part of Lebanon and the use of FPV drones. They're using that successfully in to put pressure on Israel.
Well, that was a point I was going to make, that the report yesterday is several brigades. Israel's withdrawing several brigades from southern Lebanon. So this appears to be a repeat of 2006, where they tried to get to the Litani River, couldn't. Hezbollah stopped them, and then Israel basically started withdrawing because it was taking too many casualties. It has taken, I would estimate they've at least doubled, if not tripled, the casualties this time compared to 2006. So it really it's become a costly affair. Now, ask yourself, where did Hezbollah get those FPV drones? Huh. The busy beavers in their workshops underground making them? Or is it possible, conceivable, that Iran supplied them with the drones? But we were told, oh, wait, we've got rid of Bashar al-Assad. We've destroyed the ability of Iran to resupply Hezbollah. We've killed all the Hezbollah leadership. We gave them those exploding phones and pagers. Hezbollah is devastated. Yeah, now Hezbollah is kicking Israeli ass right and left and forcing them to, they have been unable to achieve their military objectives other than destroying every village that's right along the border. Leveling it, but that as it's the Stalingrad effect. When the Germans blew up Stalingrad, they created some natural defenses for the Russian, then Soviet forces, and so the same sort of phenomenon has happened here. That they create more cover and concealment that the Hezbollah folks can use to attack Israelis. So this is Netanyahu doesn't have it. He can't point to a victory anywhere. They're getting beat up in southern Lebanon because Iran was still able overland to resupply Hezbollah and keep Hezbollah current with the latest greatest technology, not something old and outdated. He's failed to suppress and control Gaza, and now they failed to in Iran. So he's got he's 3 times a loser, and that's going to affect the vote, I'm sure, because he may be desperate to try for another Hail Mary to knock out the Iranians, but it's not going to succeed.
Plus, the vaunted control over the IDF armored and ground forces in general is shattering. If you listen to some of the remarks that are being made by intermediate leaders, even the head of the IDF as he is right now, if you listen to those and you read Haaretz closely in the way the articles parse some of this, Israel's armed forces are falling apart. They're falling apart. They're doing things that even they are not supposed to be doing. And principally, the reason they're looking at that as a negative, the leadership, is because that's harming their ability to do their mission in Lebanon, because they're going berserk. And you wouldn't blame them for going berserk if you saw the PTSD rate and you saw the suicide rate, and that's available. You can query the IDF headquarters. They will tell you what the suicide rate is and what the post-traumatic stress rate is. It's off the charts. It's terrible. So their military is actually disintegrating, and they don't want that to happen. So I'm sure they're saying up, hey, we got to stop this, or we got to do something differently. Let's stop and hold the line at the river or whatever. Let's don't do any more of this north of the river because we're destroying the armed forces.
Yeah, remember they said their original objective is to get to the Litani. They wanted to secure all the territory south of the Litani. They haven't. I don't think they've penetrated more than 5 kilometers into Lebanon right now. They're still stuck along that border region, and Hezbollah once again has proven to be effective defenders. and then they upped their game technologically with the drone. They didn't have drones 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and now they are effectively using those drones. It's like you don't need a suicide bomber; you just send the drone.
One of the articles in Haaretz was by a former IDF officer, and he said, "How come we didn't understand drones?"
Yeah, yeah. It's not like there's been anything else going on in the world where they might have learned some lessons.
Yeah.
But again, this goes to the heart of the Israelis. They're the biggest bunch of arrogant pricks I've ever been involved with. I mean, they assume they know everything. The attitude is what drives you crazy. When you've got an attitude that you know it all, that you're the best, and that nobody can teach you anything, great. You set yourself up for getting your ass handed to you, like what's happening to them in Lebanon.
And another phenomenon is that the Lebanese people, who have nothing to do with Hezbollah, in most cases, they're just business people or they're citizens, they're getting angry now. They're getting very angry with their own government, but they're getting particularly angry with the IDF.
Yeah, I mean, remember, the U.S. plan is to try to use Lebanon to attack Hezbollah, and frankly, I don't think the Lebanese, they've been involved with the civil war now for good luck, 40, 50, 51 years.
Yeah.
It started in 1975. So at some point, they're going to wake up and realize they got to stop being played by these outside forces.
One of my particular friends in Beirut said, in a moment of exasperation, "I wish the Syrians had come back."
Yeah.
At least they police a little bit.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, today in the Israeli media, they were talking about the situation is so strange right now because we have the ceasefire. They're telling us, Israelis, we have the ceasefire, but the situation for Israel in the northern part of Israel is getting worse because they were trying, because one of the main objectives of Benjamin Netanyahu, you remember that since the October the 7th, they were talking about, we want to send the people, Israeli people, to the northern part. And so far, it seems that the situation is getting worse, despite having, they have destroyed many villages in the southern part of Lebanon. But that doesn't mean necessarily that they're gaining some sort of land. They're gaining some sort of momentum because Hezbollah is fighting back. But not only in the southern part of Lebanon, Colonel, in the northern part of Israel. And I don't know if there is a solution in their mind for that.
No, and I understand they've started to move again. They started to move internal to Israel because their lives are untenable in that northern area. And they're angry. They're very angry. So all of this is building, but I take exception to what you said earlier. I'm hearing that Naftali Bennett and Lapid, they don't have a chance. They don't have a chance. They're stupid. They're not good politicians like Bibi Netanyahu is. Now, I may be wrong, maybe listening to the wrong people, but and then the other thing is they tell me there's not a 2 cents worth of difference in the way they feel about what Netanyahu is doing as being essential to Israel's future.
But, the latest report, as Barak Ravid reported, that it says the new poll shows that Bennett is ahead of Netanyahu. I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm what I'm saying is it doesn't matter, I don't think, because they're just as bad as he.
Yeah, because the 80% of Israelis, they want to get to the fight again, and they're supporting what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Lebanon.
And the West Bank, too. They're all for what's going on in the West Bank.
Yeah. And Larry, it doesn't seem that anytime soon they're going to change the mindset. I don't know if they know, because today I was talking with the Master Chas Freeman, what the point that he's mentioned that is, I think is so important, that many people who live in Israel, they don't know the scale of destruction that has happened during the war between Iran and Israel. And they don't have this national picture of what has happened to Israel. That's why they're feeling getting
most
back.
Most of them are underground. Most of them are underground.
Yeah. How is that going to be understandable for the Benjamin Netanyahu and Israelis right now, Larry? This connection. as Ambassador Chas Freeman was mentioning?
Well, if the war restarts, if they renew the attack on Iran, Iran has vowed that it's going to hit both the U.S. and Israel harder than they did during the first 5 weeks. Now, I don't know what that means, but there will be more. I guess Iran avoided taking out the power system in Israel, and if they attack that at all in Iran, then Iran will retaliate, reciprocate, and at that point, the Israelis deprived of electricity, it will be a big issue. So, I keep in mind that Israel is it's a small country compared to Iran. I mean, tiny, and it's like if you have a 1,000 bombs that you can drop, and Israel has 1,000 bombs, Iran has 1,000 bombs. The Iranian 1,000 bombs are going to have much more effect in Israel than the Israeli 1,000 bombs will have in Iran, simply because they're dropped in a much smaller area. And so, whereas, Iran is 2.5 times the size of Texas, is said. I think it's like 10,000 times the size of Israel. So what you're looking here is that the Israeli public has yet to suffer the full effects of war. And it's only going to be when they finally start suffering the full effects of war that they may finally get some motivation to change their politics. But up to this point, they've been very. It's like you get rid of Netanyahu, you still got the Israeli policy of wanting to destroy and eliminate the Palestinians. So that's why I think that there's not an electoral solution to this yet in Israel.
Yeah.
And the sad thing about it, Nima, in a political as well as an existential sense, Israel has no place to go if it's defeated. It has no place to go. There's no Nuremberg tribunal set up to officiate, even if it's on the negative side for the one side and positive for the other. There's nothing. They're done. They're finished. There's no place for them to go. The world won't accept them anywhere else. So where are they going to go?
Yeah, well, and the other thing, the
Maybe one-state solution would be helpful.
Well, I've been saying that all along. If they want to be a democracy, a real democracy, however flawed, and accept Christians and Arabs, including Palestinian Arabs and others in the region, that's a different deal altogether. They could survive, but not as this apartheid hell-bent to kill everybody who even looks like he's not a Jew state. They're not going to survive.
Well, and Israel is really doing, I guess, pouring gasoline on the fire of anti-Israeli sentiment.
Yes.
It started last week with the Israeli soldier defacing a crucifix, pounding the head of Jesus with a sledgehammer. Then another video has gone viral of one of these settlers runs up and attacks a French nun who's in the West Bank. So all of this attack on Christians, it's starting to resonate within the Christian world that in the past was very supportive of Israel. And now they're beginning to see just, the story of the crucifixion of Jesus and the Jewish establishment being the ones yelling for his crucifixion. We find out that's not a historical fable. That's reality.
Colonel, looking at the 3 steps of Iranian plan, it seems that Iran has updated, the latest version, but it's not that much different from what it was before. And the first step is putting an end to the war permanently between Iran and the United States, between Israel and Lebanon. I think that's whoever came with this plan is somehow genius, because if they don't, it never happens. And it seems that that's why I think Iranians are feeling so comfortable with this status quo, with the current situation. because they see that the blockade is not working. They have failed to do regime change in Iran. And they're just before, I remember, in the first term of the Trump administration, they put a lot of pressure on Iranian economy. Before getting out, Donald Trump withdrawing from JCPOA, Iran was exporting something like 2 million barrels, 2.5 million barrels per day. And then Donald Trump reduced that to 700 or 400,000 barrels a day. That was a huge problem in those days. We're right now, we had a war. We had a full-out war between the United States and Iran, and they're not even close to the worst situation they had before in the first administration. And that's why I think they can manage this. They feel that they can manage this situation with the United States, considering all these sort of nonsense, in my opinion, blockade that Donald Trump is bragging about.
Yeah, if I were the Iranian leadership, I would reconsider what, if I've heard accurately, what their second tier of ballistic missile primarily targeting is. I would go back to the original conception. If they feel they've got to go a second round, the original conception was hit U.S. targets only in the region. Prince Sultan, up there in the northern Iraq, Al-Udeid, Bahrain, Fifth Fleet headquarters, and so forth. Hit only U.S. installations, U.S. people in the region. Not all this massive damage that they could do to the global infrastructure in terms of oil and helium and urea, you name it. But just keep their hold on the strait the way they have it now, and just keep pounding the hell out of the United States wherever they exist in the area. I might even extend it to the Bright Star Preparation Center in Egypt. Let Egypt know that you can reach out to them too. But don't go that hugely, hugely damaging to the world economy tier of targets. It would get the world's attention. There's no question about it. But I think it would do as much damage, if not more, to Iran in the process as it would do to the United States. And we need to bring this to some sort of realization in Washington that this is not worth it. It is not going to result in success. It's going to result in the exact opposite. And let's stop this. And you take those 10 points, and if you just isolate on those points that are so critical, like relief from primary and secondary sanctions, something I might add, Obama never did. Go back and look at the JCPOA. We were well into it, and we hadn't lifted much at all. And we weren't going to lift because Obama didn't have the support of the Congress. So you got to have that in there too. But I think if you did that and you did the business of nuclear, the nuclear business, and you simply said what we said in the JCPOA, I might even lighten up on it a little bit. And you granted the other points of the 10 that are grantable and aren't exceedingly stupid for us to let them have. And I'm really going over the 10 points in my mind right now. I'm not sure I could think of any of them that are that bad. You could probably come to a close that would not be a victory for the United States. It certainly would be a victory for Iran, but it would be a better situation than we're going to have if we go at it whole hog, both sides. But what's the world usually do? What usually happens in a situation like this? Both sides go at it whole hog, and we wind up bleeding, and the United States winds up taking, I think, the bigger blow.
Of course, it looks like Iran has really toughened up its position. That one of the messages that was delivered to Washington by the Pakistanis over the weekend, when Arakchi was going to Islamabad, then Muscat, and went back, was that we are signatories to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Unlike Israel, we allow IAEA inspections. So going forward, we're not going to negotiate on any question of enrichment. That's on the back burner now. That's not even going to be one of the critical issues for us. And they said we have a right to determine what our nuclear policy is going to be, because we're living up to international law, And so we're not going to surrender our sovereignty on that. That is a tougher position than what they had before.
And were I Iran and I involved in this business and you really were doing some negotiating, and I don't know whom you would negotiate with because we don't have any diplomats, I would bring Israel into it, especially if Israel is really hard pressed, as it is going to be. It is already, as Larry pointed out. I'd say, okay, Israel gives up everything it has, everything except the civilian program. And it puts itself under the NPT additional protocols and everything else we put ourselves under. And it's subject to inspections. In fact, we could have the inspections two-tiered. They'll go to one place 1 week and then they'll go to the other place the next week. I'd be clever about it. Let's eliminate this other problem that the Omani foreign minister said was the real problem in Southwest Asia.
I think that would be helpful, because just imagine all of these countries, not only Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, they're all mostly concerned about Israel's capabilities when it comes to the nuclear weapons. So if you put some sort of pressure on Israel to give up or to control their nuclear program, that would be hugely, hugely influential in the whole region.
Yeah. And what does a truly democratic country accepting all citizens need with nuclear weapons in that region? I mean, what do they need with them?
Larry, UAE has left OPEC and they're leaving GCC, and it's a new era for UAE. This country has failed to somehow, they were struggling to survive because of the war. What has happened, they were running out of cash. The situation, the economy had a huge challenges. That's why they tried to get closer to the United States, communicate with the United States that if you don't help us, we're going to get closer to China. We're going to use yuan. And right now they have decided to get out of OPEC and to get out of GCC countries, to have some sort of more freedom when it comes to the producing oil or exporting oil. What is happening to UAE, Larry?
UAE's behavior right now reminds me of an architect firm that was in the South Tower of the World Trade Center after it had been hit with a plane. And and you go into their office, and what are they working on? Oh, they're working on remodeling some of the floors above them. Good luck with that plan, because it's completely irrelevant. You know, we're leaving OPEC. How much oil are you guys pumping right now? Well, none. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's really going to hurt OPEC. I think you got a bigger problem than that. We're going to pull out from the Gulf, the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, and we're going to align ourselves with Israel. Oh, that's a good idea. They're so popular. Israel's so influential in the world today. I mean, this is a country that's committing suicide because they got bigger problems than, some analysts say, oh, this is going to help the United States control, not be held hostage to OPEC pricing, and how it's going to affect the price of oil going forward. Meanwhile, nobody in the West is paying attention to what's actually happening in the oil market today, what's actually happening to the economy, the economic impact that is a result of the Gulf, of the Persian Gulf being shut down now for 60 days. It's the divorce from reality. That's why it's like Nero working on his fiddle playing while Rome is burning. UAE pulls out of OPEC. UAE may not exist in a year if this trend line continues. Because they are heavily dependent upon the free trade market, the free trade zone in Jebel Ali. So that's been closed. their financial industry, with the major U.S. financial centers putting operations in that country. They're dead. They're down. They're not operating. The real estate market, it's dead. You don't see that they really created. Part of their strategy was to create this exotic mix of Las Vegas and Disney World, and between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, that would attract all these foreigners and bring their foreign currency with them. Well, most of those foreigners are getting the hell out. They're not sticking around. So UAE has no future, and yet it's now said, yeah, we're going to pull out of OPEC, and we're going to divorce ourselves from the other Arab countries in the region. Yeah, good. Why don't you start taking hits of fentanyl while you're at it? That'll be good.
Little Sparta is looking more and more like the Sparta of old.
Yeah.
Carol, Politico reported that Trump's call to reduce American troops in Germany shocks Pentagon. And who's Pentagon? He's talking about, they're talking about Pete Hegseth. I don't see Pete Hegseth getting, being shocked or surprised by these sort of decisions on the part of Donald Trump.
Well, I guarantee the uniformed officers underneath him will be, especially the uniformed officers who owe their stars to being in NATO or in Europe or both. That is the cushiest, I can't say that word, job in the American military. And it has got perks going out the yin yang with it. And look what it does to the Europeans too. I mean, think about this for a minute. I've actually had people at NATO headquarters relate this to me. Every time we send a 3-star, they get another 3-star. Every time we send a 4-star, they get another 4-star. They don't need them, but they have to have an equivalent with the big partner. So this is so rank heavy, so top heavy, so bloated in Europe, but it's cushiony. It's wonderful. It's great to have a tour there. It doesn't matter whether you're in Heidelberg or Ramstein or Stuttgart or wherever you might be. So the leadership of the Pentagon would be horrified if we were to shut down most of the U.S. presence in Europe, particularly in Germany. Very cushiony there, very cushiony.
Larry, you and I were talking about NATO for such a long time, since the war in Ukraine started.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Trump has created these sort of difficulties, or I would say some sort of impasse, what's going on, not only in Ukraine, but also in the Middle East, both parties. You look at the Europeans, they're not willing to get out of Ukraine. I don't know what's going on in their mind, but they want to go down with the case of Ukraine, and nobody seems to care. It seems that the hatred toward Russia is getting stronger instead of being weaker and getting weaker. And on the other hand, you see the situation with Israel and the Middle East is worsening as we talk. And the situation in the Middle East as well. You've mentioned UAE, Saudi Arabia and UAE. They're hating each other. We have to accept, not hating each other, but they're fighting each other, at least, if we can put it this way. Yeah. What Donald Trump has created so far for himself.
Well, there's no leadership. No leadership and vision. You'd think the United States would want to, build alliances. And Trump's mission in life to see how many people he can alienate, and again, I attribute that to his own current mental decline. So, the way the trend lines are running is there is going to be a global conflagration. Russia has already now changed its language vis-a-vis Europe or NATO as a whole, which includes the United States. When Lavrov announced last week, we are at war, he didn't say we could be going to war or there's the risk of going to war. No, he said we are at war with NATO. Now, that word has not yet translated into action, which means military strikes on European targets. But if the Europe continues to the different European countries continue to supply drones and attack sensitive targets inside Russia, Russia's going to retaliate, and they're going to hit targets in Europe, and then this thing's going to escalate. The same with Putin gave Trump a warning the other day in his phone call. It's just basically keep your damn hands off of Iran. I don't think Trump's going to pay attention to that warning. He's ignored. He's already showed that the decision to launch the attack on Iran on February 28th, the majority of his advisors counseled against it. He ignored his advisors. So he's just going to do what he wants to do, what he thinks is right. So instead of easing these tensions, the tensions are going to escalate. And yet the irony of it is, particularly Europe is at the weakest point that it ever has been, in 500 years. They don't have they have the pretension of military strength. They think, we're powerful, but they're not. They've shrunken. Just one example of that is look at the UK, and now Milei, the president of Argentina, is talking about retaking the Falkland Islands, Las Malvinas. The Argentines always say Las Malvinas son nuestras. The Malvinas Islands are ours. It was 46 years ago, roughly, that the UK was able to mount a military effort to go down and kick the Argentinians out of the Malvinas and call it the Falklands. They couldn't do that today. Couldn't do it at all. They don't have the naval power, and they don't have the military, the army, capable of doing it. So, and that same pattern has repeated itself across Europe, across Germany, France, Italy. So they're a shadow of their former selves, but they keep looking in the mirror thinking that they are the best, the brightest, really quite capable. And so when you've got that belief that you're invincible and you act according to that belief, but it turns out you don't actually have the capabilities, it ends disastrously. And on top of that, then with this economic, at a minimum, it's a recession. And I think Colonel Wilkerson's right. We're going to be closer. It will be a depression, a global depression. When that hits with the full force, these countries, they're not going to have the resources to build up their military.
I think, Nima, what we had after the recession, then depression that commenced in 29, took on great weight in 32, brought Roosevelt to the presidency in 33. Think about what we had after that. And think about what Larry was just saying. We are the escalation ladder is up against the side of the global barn.
Yeah.
The rungs are labeled Arctic, Baltic, Ukraine, Georgia, Iran, and I probably missed a couple. We're already on the rungs. And at the top is the nuclear holocaust. That's not where we want to go, but that's where we're going. That's where we're going. We're going into global conflict. Going to be creepingly, and then it's going to be disaster.
Larry, before wrapping up, just the final question is that when you look at Zelensky, because Zelensky is somehow the government, or let's put it this way, the people, the administration, Zelensky administration in Ukraine somehow connects what's going on in Europe to what's going on in the Middle East, because they were there in Syria, if you remember, and training these Daesh or HTC forces to attack Syria. And right now they're in Saudi Arabia and some Gulf states. It seems that they're trying to improve their capabilities in order to go to fight drones. I don't know what is the capabilities of Ukraine to help them with the case of drones.
Well, I don't think it's a significant capability. I was going to add, don't forget Mali. They're down mucking around in Mali as well. So right now you've got the proxy forces, but Ukraine, Ukraine militarily cannot sustain itself. Right now, the Russians have the spring offensive has started, and they are moving rapidly on several fronts. They breached a significant defensive line outside of Sumy. And then in Zaporizhia, they've also had a breakthrough. So those are, but nobody's paying attention anymore. So this has been, I think, Zelensky's quest to try to remain relevant. His offer to, with their expertise in drones, they don't have a massive industrial drone operation. They got more mom and pop shops, and now are relying upon European production facilities. It's quite different from what the Russians have. So the limited, I call it the limited expertise they have with drones. It's not going to be a game changer for any of these other countries. It's just, I think it's more of a Zelensky's attempt to try to remain relevant because nobody's paying much attention to him anymore.
And he hates that. He absolutely hates that.
Yeah. Just Netanyahu is right at the center, and Zelensky is just fading away.
Yeah. Well, you saw again, you got curious relationships. A Russian ship loaded with Ukrainian grain pulled up and delivered it to Israel last week. It drove the Ukrainians nuts.
Don't you unload that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're out there in the Mediterranean, 600 nautical miles away from our territorial waters, arresting all these people on boats in international waters, or in some cases, even in the territorial waters of Greece.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Carl and Larry, for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
We survived another week. We're already in May. I can't believe it, man. 4 months of the world.
Isn't it amazing how fast time goes now? God,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, and see you soon.
All right.
Happy May Day.
Yes, sir.
Happy May Day.
See you
Bye-bye.
Monday.
See you Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye.